Okay, let's get started. It looks like people are still wandering into the room, but let's get started. I'm Joel Angelillo. Good evening. I'm one of the members of the Metro West Climate Solutions Steering Committee. We're all very happy you could join us tonight. The Metro West Climate Solutions is a partnership of local groups who want to speed our path to a healthier carbon neutral world. A partnership that includes First Parish of Wayland, First Parish in Weston, First Parish in Lincoln, and a growing list of other local organizations. Since 2019, we have been holding roughly monthly public meetings and webinars on climate-related issues. Topics have ranged from Beacon Hill legislation to offshore wind to tonight's topic, trash. If you would like to receive news of upcoming Metro West Climate Solution events, as well as events hosted by other Metro West groups, go to metrowestclimatesolutions.org to sign up for our newsletter. We'll put that URL in the chat. You'll also find on metrowestclimatesolutions.org recordings of our previous sessions. Speaking of which, this session is being recorded and will be available soon on our website. We encourage your questions. Please type in your questions using the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen, not the chat button. So once again, welcome. And now I turn the virtual mic over to Lori Bent, a member of the Weston Select Board and previously chair of Weston's Conservation Commission. One of her roles on the select board is overseeing Weston's transfer station makeover. So I turn it over to you, Lori.
Thank you. This evening's session is going to be on the intractable problem of waste, as Joel said, garbage, the stuff we don't want anymore. How can we make less of it? And how can we find less harmful ways of dealing with waste? Kirstie Pecci is this evening's speaker. She is the executive director of Just Zero, a national nonprofit organization that pushes for equitable laws and policies to move us to a zero waste reality. She has a BA in government from Harvard and a JD from Boston College Law School. Before founding Just Zero, she worked on issues of waste at MassPIRG and the Conservation Law Foundation. Her life's work has been developing strategies and taking action to solve the problem of waste. Kirstie describes herself on her website as an extroverted extrovert, and she brings that outsized personality and passion to her work. On the Just Zero website, Kirstie says, "I refuse to accept that we can't do better in addressing our waste crisis." I've heard Kirstie speak a few times, and I'm always blown away by her passionate conviction that we can rise to the challenge and solve our waste problem. I'll turn it over to Kirstie.
Can you hear me? All right, excellent. Thank you very much for having me tonight. Thank you very much, Lori, for that kind introduction. It goes to show that you should say nice things about yourself on your website because then people might repeat them and believe them. So that's always good. I also want to alert everyone that my mother-in-law is watching, I see from looking at the chat. So if there are any really difficult questions, we know where they're from, okay? So let's be aware of that. Stephanie, if you could start the presentation for me. Okay, so how can we eliminate toxic trash and poisonous plastics? I am going to move quickly through this. Most of you, maybe not all of you, but many of you have a lot of interest in this topic and have seen other presentations, as Lori said, or read about this and have specific questions. I'm going to try and buzz through everything in 25 minutes. But I'm happy to stay on and answer questions and make sure we cover everything that people are interested in. I could have done 5 different presentations on these issues, as you folks know, off the top of my head. So we're going to keep this moving along tonight, but understand that there's a lot more to share that we can do in the future. And this is my email address. Do not be shy about emailing me. I am happy to hear from other folks and happy to do other presentations like this. I love doing this. Next slide. Okay, so why do we form Just Zero? Why did we start a new organization? Next slide, please. So there are a lot of fantastic climate organizations. There are a lot of fantastic environmental organizations. There are a lot of fantastic zero waste organizations. We're the only one that I know of that not only is working nationally and taking the lessons that my team learned in New England to other states and working nationally with those lessons, but also who does all different forms of zero waste work. In other words, opposes landfills and incinerators and other dangerous facilities, knows a lot about composting and is working very hard to help folks figure out what good composting, good sustainable composting systems look like, and then all kinds of recycling and plastics. We really believe that this work should be community centered, it should be circular, and the solutions should be sustainable. And what I mean by that is, when I say community centered, we don't want any sacrificed communities. It is not okay to have one of these facilities in your community, my community, or any community. We need things to be truly circular, not pretending to be circular, which we'll talk about later on. And then when I say sustainable, I'm usually referring to not only the conservation of resources, which is crucial, soil, metals, all of those different pieces that we're running out of. We're running out of sand, for instance. I'm also talking about toxicity. We are killing ourselves, and we have to stop doing that. And then lastly, we don't accept money from bad actors. There are a lot of nonprofits who are part of a larger system of corporate bad actors, and they take money from those corporate bad actors and pretend that they're pushing forward solutions, when in actuality, they are pretending to solve these problems and really don't want to change the system at all. Next slide, please. So the problem is that there are dangerous solid waste facilities. As I said, there are a lot of false solutions out there, and there's a lack of investment and belief in the real solutions that we know work. We know what works, and we need to start putting it in place. Next slide, please. We have 4 programs at Just Zero. The first is End Burning Now. When I say end burning now, we need to stop burning everything, as Bill McKibben will tell you, if we want to solve the climate change problem. We need not only our cars to no longer be combustion engines, but electric. We need our homes to no longer have oil heat burning in our basement or pellet stoves, for instance. We need to also not burn our trash. And that means mass burn, just throwing it, in a facility where it's burned. That cement kilns, for instance, are being used to burn trash all over the world. That means no more waste to energy. That's the happy name, the greenwashing name that the industry has given incineration here in this country. And that means none of this baloney, pyrolysis or gasification, which is heating these trashes at very high temperatures, then breaking them down, the oils, the waxes, the different components, and burning them. And then chemical, advanced, or molecular recycling, which is also all the same kind of bag of baloney. And what that is again, breaking down plastics, purely one form of plastic or another, breaking it down into its different components. We've seen that it doesn't work. It takes too pure a stream to make it happen. It's incredibly polluting. And almost all of that, meaning like 80, 90%, is being burned. There's a very, very small amount of polymers that are pulled out, which then have to be sent somewhere else to be made in plastic, and usually are not. So when we say end burning now, we mean all burning, the old ones and the new ones, and all the baloney ideas in between. Next slide, please. We want to stop burying trash as well. Every landfill has toxic air emissions. Every landfill has methane. If you bury organic materials and it rains or snows on that landfill, you're going to end up with methane. And they cannot capture it, and they cannot flare it. It ends up going into the environment, and methane is one of the most powerful climate change chemicals. All landfills also have leachate, or that garbage coffee, as I call it, that escapes the landfill. Eventually the liners all leak, if there are liners at all. And then finally, the leachate that's collected, which is part of running a landfill, it's an everyday thing that is done in every landfill. That leachate that's collected is sent to wastewater treatment plants. Wastewater treatment plants do not have, nor can they, it is impossible for them to treat landfill leachate. The variety and intensity of the chemicals and heavy metals and other things found in the leachate remain in the leachate adhere to sludge, off gas, and then end up going into the outflow pipe into the river or ocean. So landfill, again, a terrible technology that never ever works. Next slide, please. So our third program, after the stop burying stuff and stop burning stuff, our third program is keep compost clean. And this is something that there's a tremendous amount of work to be done here. We are seeing across the country that people are turning to composting as a way to reduce their waste tonnage, divert it from disposal, landfills or incinerators, in part to reduce that methane. But a lot of times it's simply that they wish to not pay the tipping fees for trash. And that is, again, by the ton. So if you can reduce 25, 33% of that by taking the food and yard waste out, that's fantastic. We're seeing this across the country. But we need to adhere to our food waste hierarchy. The food waste hierarchy is, first of all, don't produce the food. Second of all, feed people with the food. Thirdly, feed animals with the food. And then lastly, only then should you compost it. This makes sense when you start thinking about all of the water, the energy, and the labor that goes into producing food. It's best if, from an environmental standpoint, if something's going to be wasted, do not create it in the first place. But if that's not what's happening, make sure it gets into somebody's belly, and barring that, make sure, a huge portion of this country is still food insecure. That's unacceptable. A lot of programs have been working on this aspect of it, but the place where Just Zero really sees our best value is making sure that the food ends up being properly composted and processed. What we mean by that is not mixing clean food scraps with toxic material like sewage sludge. Right now, the city of Cambridge is doing a great job separating their food scraps from their solid waste. It delights me that they're doing that. And as far as I've heard, the quality of the food scraps is fantastic because the staff at Cambridge has worked really hard to educate folks, and folks are doing a great job. Unfortunately, the food scraps are then being mixed with sewage sludge at the wastewater treatment plant in the Greater Lawrence Sanitary District. As I mentioned before, landfill leachate goes into those facilities, but also a lot of other toxic materials from other industrial uses. Anything that goes down the drain, anything that goes down your toilet ends up in a sewer treatment plant. It's not that big a deal from a home usually. Sometimes it is. Most of the time it's not. But it's a terrible idea from industrial facilities. So what we end up with is toxic sewage sludge, rife with PFAS, heavy metals, and many, many other contaminants that are forever chemicals. We don't want our nice, clean food scraps to be mixed with that. If you do that, then you create a product, you increase the mass of a product that then can't be spread on farmland or used to replenish soils. Maine has banned the spreading of sewage sludge. I think that other states are going to start following in short order because of PFAS. So we need to make sure that our food scraps are not processed with sewage sludge like Cambridge is doing, and the city of Boston, some of their stuff's going there too, through a waste management contract. Waste management, the company doesn't want to lose any of its money. So they found another way to get your tipping fee dollars and still create trash really in the end. So that's a project that we're working very hard on, the greater Boston area. Let me know if you're interested. We're working with Mothers Out Front on that. And we need to make sure that we have clean composting, clean separate composting and anaerobic digestion. Anaerobic digestion is okay. It just can't be with toxic materials. And then lastly, about our composting program, just to let folks know, we're also very concerned about deep packaging. Deep packaging plants are plants in which they squeegee the food out of the plastic packaging, which sounds like a good idea in theory. But remember that we either want to be feeding people, okay, we're not going to eat the stuff out of a deep packaging plant, but we also want to feed animals. So we found in Vermont that animals are being fed food from depackagers, and there's a significant, like 5%, maybe even more, plastic in that food. So we need to make sure if we use depackagers, and we have some depackagers in Massachusetts and other places around the country, depackagers are used in situations where they're not going to result in plastic being in the end product. I don't want plastic in my soil. I don't want plastic in my pig's food. I don't want plastic in anything. So that needs to be regulated. Vermont's working on some regs on that. We're hoping that we can share that and spread that around the country. But that's what our Composting Clean program looks like right now. helping folks to divert and set up systems, but also making sure that those systems don't end up in new sources of pollution and new sources of plastic contamination. Next slide, please. So our last program, and I'm going to spend a good amount of time on this one tonight, is reduce, reuse, and recycle right. As I talked about it with the food hierarchy, there's also a zero waste hierarchy. And the zero waste hierarchy starts off with reduce. If you don't use something, it is better for the environment. It is a savings, period. Don't use it. The next is reuse. We want to refill, we want to reuse, we want materials that we can use over and over and over again for packaging, but for everything that we use. And then if we're going to recycle it, we want to recycle right. So that we call this our 4R program. And that's a really important component because there are a lot of folks who are pretending to recycle and they're liars. They're liars and they're not recycling. So we need to start tracking that. We need to make sure they're actually recycling, and we need to think about what recycling even is. Next slide, please. Okay, so I looked in the dictionary today. It's the same thing I used to do when I was writing a paper and I was a kid, and I said, oh God, I have to write a paper. And I said, I want to make this slide. What do I want to put in this slide? These are the two definitions of recycling. And this is one of the reasons that it confuses the heck out of people. One is converting waste into reusable material. Okay, that makes sense. The other is the waste material set aside to be recycled. Okay, so converting waste into reusable material is what I'm talking about here. This is what I mean. And I wouldn't say material. I would say, and if you can see the next slide, I would say we want it to be a new product, right? We want it to be manufactured into the same product or a product with just as much value. We want to replace virgin materials, or otherwise, what's the point here? We don't want to downcycle, and we don't want to burn it or use it as landfill cover. And we're also talking about post-consumer materials here. So let me back up a smidge here. So when we talk about virgin materials, remember, we don't want to be using new glass or new plastic or new paper or new cardboard. We want to be using the recycled material. That's why when you see 100% recycled post-consumer material, they're talking about material that was used by someone, brought back, and then recycled. That's how we avoid the use of virgin materials in recycling. We don't want to downcycle. Downcycling is when you are using the material, but you're using the material for a use that is truly, I think of it as sad. It's sad. You know, you're using the material for something like plastic decking. That's a favorite. Plastic decking. You can make plastic decking out of anything. You shouldn't even use plastic decking. It just kind of sucks. That's downcycling. That's a great example of downcycling. Another example of downcycling would be making plastic bottles into carpets or clothing. If you've made a plastic bottle into a carpet or clothing, you have to take new plastic. You have to frack the gas, crack the ethylene, make it into a new plastic pellet, and then make a new bottle. You have not avoided any of the negative upstream impacts that we're trying to avoid. And then when I say don't burn it or use it as landfill cover, people say, well, of course that's not recycling. That's burning it or using landfill cover. In Maine, if you use it for landfill cover, it's recycling. And that's true of a lot of places in this country. If you burn it using a chemical recycling facility, even if most of it is char, meaning ash, and burned, actually literally combusted, and when I say most of it, as I said, 80%, they are still counting that as recycling in some places. California just changed its laws so that burning in the incinerator is not considered recycling the way that it was before. And now the two incinerators they have are probably going to have to close because that was the nonsense that was keeping them open. So we don't want burning to ever be allowed. Every bill I write, I say recycling is not, and I list every single burning technology because it's all baloney, and we want to make sure that's not what we spend our money on. And as I said already, post-consumer. So, you've heard of TerraCycle. As far as I can tell from talking to people who've investigated this in depth and the lawsuits that have gone on, TerraCycle does recycle some pre-consumer materials. So if I make something and it's made of plastic and plastic falls on the ground from my cutting machines, we can sweep it up and make it into plastic again. Well, that's easy peasy because it's all clean and it's all the same material I used in the first place to make the material. It hasn't been mixed with anything else. It hasn't been used or it had got food on it or anything like that. That's pre-consumer recycling. That is not a tough thing to do. That has not impressed me at all. We see though that even though TerraCycle is receiving boxes and boxes of little plastic bits, none of those seem to get recycled. We have no evidence that any of that stuff that they're receiving, all those boxes and subscription services that they're doing, none of it seems to get recycled. So that is the difference between post and pre-consumer recycling. You can see how corporations use that to twist what they're doing. Next slide, please. So plastic recycling is not going to happen. Not going to happen. Just let it go. Not going to happen. There are a few instances and a little bit of it will get recycled, but we need to move on. This is the guy your family told you when you met him, you should have broken up with him. He's been horrible to you the whole time. He's cheated on you. He's stolen from you. He's lied to you. He kicks your dog. Break up with him already. That is plastic. And what we really care mostly about is not the plastic that's in my car or my contact lenses. What we really care about is single-use plastic that can be replaced by other things. The oil companies are planning to make more and more plastic, as all of you know. That is their plan B. If we're not going to burn the gas and oil, then they're going to make plastic out of it. And as a result, they're saying, you people just have not tried hard enough. You haven't been putting the plastic in the bin. You haven't been sorting it right. You guys just don't try. You throw it in you just throw it into nature. You're just terrible recyclers. That is the hard part. And so when we talk about plastic recycling, and I will get to, I see a question here, what's your top recommendation for reducing plastic? We should go after the low-hanging fruit first, and we'll get to that, but there are ways of making it happen. Because the plastic I'm most concerned about is the stupid plastic that we use every day that we don't need to use. That's the stuff we need to get out of our lives as quickly as possible, mostly to do with food production and the food that we purchase. And takeout and all those other pieces. So first off, when you're looking at why plastic recycling won't work, and by the way, the plastic companies, you should read the article by Laura Sullivan from NPR about how plastic companies knew 30 years ago that none of this baloney was ever going to work. They knew it wasn't going to work. They wrote down in their meetings, nope, we can never make plastic recycling work. We're going to pretend it's all the consumer's fault. And then they donated those documents to a university because in their hubris, they thought no one was going to read them. But Laura Sullivan read them, and then she interviewed all the people who were involved. And sure enough, they knew years and decades ago that plastic recycling was baloney, but they still have been pretending all this time that it should happen and that we should invest in curbside recycling and make it happen for plastic. Never going to happen. First thing, and this is something that you can also look at if you have time, to the Greenpeace report that just came out in October. Mwah, beautiful report, love it. Greenpeace does some really excellent work on it. And what they talk about is why plastics not recycling is not going to happen. When you think something is going well, when you think, yep, that's working, you do not say to yourself, yep, I am working out consistently. I schedule myself to work out 100 days in this year, and I worked out 5 of them. You wouldn't think that was a success. You would think that was an utter and abysmal failure. That's how much we're recycling total for plastic in this country, 5%, okay? That is unacceptable. The reason for that, one, collection is difficult for these materials because, again, the materials are used in a variety of different ways and have a variety of different shapes. Material recycling facilities are the facilities where your trash and recycling companies take your recycling to be sorted. The other recycling program that we have in Massachusetts is our bottle bill, and then we have drop-off programs. So in Sturbridge, I can go and I can put my recycling in different containers, and plastic, glass, metal, different colors, glass, cardboard, paper, and all of it gets sold as is, nice and clean out there. Most recycling in this state, about 700,000 tons a year, goes to the 9 material recycling facilities that are sorted. There, if it is less than 2 inches long, it's not going to be put in the, so 2 inches around, it is not going to go into the recycling. It is going to go in the trash. If it is a bag of any sort or in a bag of any sort, it is not going to be recycled. It's going to be in the trash. They are sorting through thousands of different types of plastic. So they can get the paper out, they can get the metal out, but they cannot get all those different types of plastic out, because when I say thousands of different types, I mean thousands of different types. It's not like glass where you have a few different colors, or cardboard where you have corrugated and non-corrugated and shiny paper versus not shiny paper. Plastic is thousands of different types. So it cannot be sorted properly by a MRF. And there's also a tremendous toxicity problem with plastic, tremendous. If plastic is recycled, many times you are accelerating, or what's the word I want? It's like an echo chamber. You're making the plastic toxicity, you're increasing it through the process. It's a toxic process that yields a toxic result many times. The other problem, and this is something that I've just learned about a couple years ago, bottle bill recycling, where everything is sorted and just food grade plastic is involved and food grade products are involved. You bring it to the machine, it sorts it right out. The number 1 bottles go here, the number 2 bottles go here. It can even be sorted by color, size, everything. And it's all from food. In the curbside bin, it may be number 1 or number 2 plastic, but you may have a bleach bottle in there. You may have a bottle of Roundup in there. It may not have been cleaned out properly. And what that means is that food grade plastic that was used for bottles or tubs or anything else that's in your bin can never be used for food. In other words, the plastic in curbside is never going to be used for food grade plastic, bottles, tubs, or anything else ever, because it could be contaminated by non-food grade materials in your recycling bin. So that's the toxicity. There are 2 levels of the toxicity problem. One is curbside contamination. The other is just the toxicity of plastic in the process of recycling itself. The next is, you need to have somewhere to take this, okay? When we're talking about that definition of recycling, the definition of recycling is not sorting it. The definition of recycling is not putting it in your bin. The definition of recycling is making it into something else. Your plastic has nowhere to go, okay? There are 7 different resins, thousands of different kinds of plastic within that. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, and 7, which is other. And so those are your kinds of plastic. Those different resins are different types of plastic as far as how the building blocks of plastic work. You cannot recycle those if they're mixed together. Cannot. You cannot even process them in a chemical recycling facility many times if they're mixed together. However, you can recycle number 1 by itself and number 2 by itself. Not nearby, there are regional facilities, but you can send them to be sold and recycled. And the number 1 and number 2 from your curbside materials, again, the stuff that's picked up at the side of your house, you know, when you put your trash and your recycling out, that curbside plastic can be recycled, but not into food grade. So it has to be downcycled. It's made into carpet, it's made into clothing, number 1 and number 2. That's all that can happen with that number 1 and number 2. The number 5 could possibly, in theory, go to, I don't even have a phone here, so I don't know. It could possibly unplug it. The number 5 could possibly be recycled if there was a facility. There is a facility in Alabama. Are you going to take a load of plastic from the MRF to Alabama to be recycled from Massachusetts? Probably not. So I would argue that no, it's not recyclable. And the more you dig into whether something is recyclable or not, the more terrifying it is. Because I was digging into some of these numbers and from Greenpeace today. You know, if something is recyclable in this country, you should have somewhere to send it. So there's no place to send the number 7 other. That's just a nonsense. Number 6, styrene, polystyrene, no. 5, 4, no. 3, no. There's no place to send it. And the places that there are to send the number 5, 2, and 1, there's about 10% manufacturing or remanufacturing capacity for number 2. So if you took all the number 2 plastic in the country, you could only recycle 10% of it at the existing facilities. PET, 20.9% capacity, and number 5, 2% capacity. So what this means is this is a failed system that was meant to fail. There's no place to send this shit, none. If you had everything sorted perfectly and sent out, it would be thrown away. And that's why most of it is getting thrown away. There is no place to send it. The other thing to remember before we go on a little bit more about not having any place to send that and why that is, the yield of this is very low. When I say the yield is low, if I give you a ton of glass, you're not going to get exactly a ton of new glass, but you're going to get close to it. You're going to get close to it. If it's well sorted through a bottle bill system, for instance, or through a drop-off program like we have in Sturbridge, like they have in Wellesley, Newton has a drop-off on top of their curbside. If it's well sorted, then that glass, a ton of glass, almost a ton of glass. I'll get you almost a ton of glass. If you have well sorted, number 1, PET bottles, they're going to flake it up and you're going to get 51% of flake that you can use. So if you started with a ton, you end up with just a half a ton to use to recycle. Likewise, if you have bottle bill PET, the purest of snow when it comes to sorted materials, bottle bills sort like nobody's business, you end up with 70% flake. That is not okay. That is not even most of it. So the point is that your yield, best case scenario, is going to be crap. And when you look at why is there no place to recycle these materials, there are places to sort them, there are places to drop them off, there are places for people to pick them up. Why is there no place for it to be made into plastic? One of the reasons is the money isn't there. If I'm going to recycle something and end up with less crap than I started with, why would I want to do that? That much less? That's terrible. And also, you can only recycle plastic a few times. Some say once, some say 12 times for the best plastics, like number 1. But even in a lab, you can't recycle forever. The strands of the polymers get shorter and shorter. Now, that's true for cardboard and paper too, but you can compost those things at the end. Glass and metal, you can recycle that forever, literally forever. So why are we even thinking about using plastic? And I haven't even gotten into the toxicity of the system of creating plastic. That's another day, but it's an incredibly toxic, unfair, polluting, climate damaging system. And as you can see, it is never going to work. And this is without even considering, remember all of this, and remember that we are subsidizing virgin gas every day. We spend billions of dollars to make sure that it's practically free for gas and oil companies to produce gas and oil. So why would they ever recycle these materials when it's practically free for them to produce gas and oil? And that is how they make their bread and butter. Otherwise, they will shut down. So plastic recycling, not happening. The only time it might work is in a closed loop system. Next slide, please. So we need to solve this. We need to fix this. We don't have to live like this. So let's talk about some solutions and what really makes sense. Next slide, please. Bottle and can return. Nothing works better than a bottle bill. A bottle bill is, a bottle bill is the Snickers bar for Halloween candy. A bottle bill is that for recycling systems, okay? Bottle bills are fucking awesome. All right. And when I say bottle bills are awesome, the reason I think they're awesome is because if they're designed well, they work. They work all day, every day, and they're awesome. They sort the materials really well. Because there's a deposit you get back when you bring it back, and incentivizes everyone to take care, to bring it back. So it takes care of collection. The sorting is done, as I said, on site. The sorting is done on site. They're actually clean materials, so they're sold back and actually get recycled. The only plastic that's regularly getting recycled in this country is bottle bill plastic. We have 10 states that have bottle bills right now. Most of them need to be reformed and modernized to include all beverages. That's our problem in Massachusetts. And they work really, really well. If they are returned to retail, so people can bring their bottles and cans back to the store, they're also really fair, because then you can return them exactly where you got it. That's fair. So even if you don't have a car, you can make it work however you got your groceries in the first place, and they really work. They're a form of producer responsibility. I've been working on the bottle bill in Massachusetts for many years. Working now to revise the existing law so that we modernize it and make it good. It got out of committee last year in Massachusetts, which is amazing. It's the first time it's ever gotten out of committee. So I'm coming back with a stronger, better bottle bill that I'm asking folks to sponsor on the Hill. I will let you all know, but that's something that we can make a huge difference. We can get all the aluminum, all the glass, and all the plastic for all our beverages, nips up to liquor bottles, out of the system if we update our bottle bill in Massachusetts. So stay tuned, and I'll let you guys know when I know more about who's going to sponsor it, what it's going to look like, and how we get it done. Other producer responsibility systems, we're working on producer responsibility for packaging across the country. I was telling the folks before the meeting, Peter from my office has just compared the existing producer responsibility for packaging bills. We've got a fantastic bill we developed with Beyond Plastic. I love it. The reason I love it is because it does more than most producer responsibility bills do traditionally. It reduces the plastic use, it reduces the waste, and it also tries to get rid of the toxicity. So we need to set targets and all of these things to make them happen. We need to see where the shit is actually going and measure it. And that's the kind of thing that we want to see in our bills, whether it's producer responsibility for packaging or just for beverage return. Next slide, please. We need to switch to reusables. I mean, I've given you a couple examples here. This is just scratching the surface. In New Jersey, they've had a bag ban, plastic and paper grocery bags for 6 months. By the end of the year, they're going to have not used 8 billion bags. Okay, bans, when they're written well, like the New Jersey one is, and like what we're going to be putting forward in Massachusetts again, they work. You can't allow for thicker plastic. You want to avoid the use of paper bags in any way, shape, or form you can. So I think banning is a great way to go. But banning materials that you don't want to be using works when it's written well. So that's one example, the grocery bags. We need our coffee cups and our foodware to be reusable. There's a company called Useful that's working with, I think it's Holyoke campus now, to have all the foodware be reusable foodware that's returned. This is true at our elementary schools. When I was a kid, we didn't have a styrofoam tray. Are you kidding me? That's never going to get recycled, and it's just incredibly expensive and wasteful. We need any enclosed system where someone's eating there to have a reusable facility, a reusable foodware, cups, everything else, coffee cups, everything. And if you don't have a situation where you're going to be drinking or eating it there and you're taking it with you, in many places what they have is kiosk systems where you pay $1 tip extra for your cup, bring the cup to a kiosk, and then they clean it and bring it back to the coffee store. It's not complicated, people. If I can get shoes in 2 days, we can get our coffee cups and our foodware system to be circular for our cafes and cafeterias across the country. When I talk about the bottle bill, my ideal is not just returning and recycling everything, but eventually getting to refillable glass bottles. I don't want to drink out of plastic. 90% of it has bits of plastic in it. If you're drinking out of plastic, if you can avoid it in any way, shape, or form, you should avoid it. It's dangerous. And you're ending up with plastic in your body. That's a choice you're making. And refillable glass bottles, that's not a problem. Also, as I said before, glass can be recycled endlessly, but better than that, this climate and energy and resource savings that you have when you refill a product like a glass bottle. You end up using the bottle, say 40 times, and all of your gains are exponential. We need to refill wherever we can. And we need that to be the system throughout this country on everything that we eat and drink. Okay, next slide, please. Other thing that I like to talk about too is pay as you throw. These solutions here are what I think of as agency solutions. So I talked to you about bottle bill, EPR, and different things that we can do locally to have skip the stuff and refill and return systems for coffee cups and foodware. Those are good local programs or statewide legislative programs. This slide is about agency programs. Right now, much of the state has pay-as-you-throw programs in place, meaning that you pay for your bag or you pay a certain amount for your trash container. You pay more if you have a bigger container, you pay more if you have more bags rather than fewer bags. Cities and towns where they have pay-as-you-throw reduce their trash, sometimes by up to 40 or 50% within the first year. People stop buying stuff that they have to throw away. What that means is change in behavior that's systemic. I know you all are trying to do a good job. I'm trying to do a good job. Lots of people are trying to do a good job, but we need systemic change to kick this. We're not going to beat this unless we have systemic change. So pay as you throw, where you have a system that does that and then ratchets it up over time, ends up reducing the amount of trash that the residents create. And you can also do something comparable for commercial haulers, another commercial trash production. In other words, 60% of our trash comes from institutions, commercial entities, and businesses. It's like colleges, hospitals, schools, businesses, offices, the dentist, whoever. So those folks are 60% of the trash. We need dumpsters to have a sensor on them, so that you're not getting an automatic pickup at each week. You're getting a pickup when you have a sensor. Then you would put less in your trash each week because you don't want to pay for that pickup of your dumpster, of your emptying of your dumpster. That's the way we get this done. Waistbands work. The important part about waistbands is not only banning textiles from disposal, like we just started doing in Massachusetts now, or food from disposal, but making sure we know where it's going and that it's actually getting recycled, not burned or buried. I looked it up and found some information from a friend. It looks like 20,000 tons a year of textiles are going to parts all over the world to be burned and buried. There are not recycling programs in these countries. They're being dumped on by us, Massachusetts. That's from just Massachusetts. That is unacceptable. We need to make sure that we create circularity here at home and that the DEP and the agency is reviewing, where is the food going? Is it going into a wastewater treatment plant to be mixed with sewage sludge like I talked about earlier? Not cool. Same with textiles. Same with any of the bans we do. And then lastly, Vermont's got a system where if you want to throw your trash away in Vermont, your city or town has to file with Vermont. All right, that's no big deal. That makes total sense. Well, if you pick up a dumpster, if you're Casella Waste or Waste Management or any other company, and you pick up a dumpster in Massachusetts, or if you pick up along a route in Massachusetts, that city or town is going to be part of that route. And say I'm picking up in Brookline or, Weston. Why would Weston have filed with Vermont? They haven't. They never did. So Vermont does not end up getting any municipal solid waste from other states. And it's perfectly legal. It's not a problem. Why are we not making sure that we track our waste that way in this state, in every state, especially if you're a place like New Hampshire, where half the waste they're getting is from out of state? Let's create permitting systems so we know whose waste we're disposing of where. And I mean this going in and going out. I don't want our plastics, when the plastic can't be recycled here, it gets burned in Connecticut. That's not cool. So we want to make sure that we're not doing that, and we're not sending waste to New Hampshire, Maine, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Those are the places we're sending waste. We take our, elitist, progressive values and try and shut down facilities here, and then we just burden impoverished people in other communities. Not cool. That is not what zero waste is all about. That is not what justice is all about. And that's certainly not what we're going to be doing. So we need to start really tracking where things are going in and out in this state, in Massachusetts. And I'm really hopeful that we'll see some changes with the new governor. We've got an opportunity to, teach her a thing or two and maybe get some of this done. Next slide, please. Okay, finishing up. Landfills are never safe. Never, ever, ever. Incineration, high heat. You go over 500 degrees and you put anything toxic in, never safe. They don't test what comes out very well. When they do test it, they find stuff and then they pretend they don't. Never safe. And you always end up with incineration with some kind of ash that has to be disposed of. And if there were toxics going in, there'll be toxic going out with the ash and in the air. Plastic recycling is a massive fail. Let it go. Let's stop using plastic. Single-use plastic has got to go. So anything we're doing that's not leading towards getting rid of single-use plastic is not worth doing. Greenwashing is pushing us towards these false solutions. Molecular, chemical recycling, composting, putting the food in with the sewage sludge because we'll create a little bit more methane, and it's all paid for by taxpayers, so no one's paying attention to it. All of these TerraCycle, send me your plastics, I'm going to recycle them. No, you're not. This is all greenwashing, and we need to start picking it all apart, calling out the folks who are working hand in hand with polluters, and not accept it anymore. That's what we need to do. And next slide, please. So we need to keep clean materials clean and separate, and then they have value. This works. This works great. Sturbridge didn't hit a lot of the terrible lows that everybody else did in their recycling market, because our stuff's all separated out nice and clean. It's not, I mean, we had some problems, but not compared to other places, because we separate our stuff out. We need to treat all of these materials as if they have value and retain their value. We need to measure and regulate the results. I don't care if it goes to the MRF. I care where it goes from the MRF. I want to know where it ends up. And that's what DEP and every agency in this country needs to be tracking. Be careful who you trust. If you, just because they say they're mass recycle doesn't mean that everybody on the board isn't a waste company. Most of them are waste companies. Keep America Beautiful is a Coca-Cola organization, okay? You know what, they want to keep America drinking Coke, and they want to keep America not making Coca-Cola pay for the disposal or recycling or, God forbid, refill of those Coke and Pepsi and other bottles. And then lastly, we can't do this without people. I can talk all day, as you can probably tell. It doesn't matter. Okay, the legislators don't care if I just come in. I need everybody else to call too. So next slide, please, please, please get engaged. Things are changing. Things are changing really fast because of the internet, because of the increased politicization of our country. Things are changing, but they're going to be lousy changes if we don't make sure that they're good changes. So stay on top of it. And then lastly, please become a member of Just Zero. Go on our website. It's gorgeous. Olivia, our communications director, she had such a good vision and she made it happen. And, become a member so that you get, know what we're up to. Sign up for the newsletter. We will tell you when there's something going on in Massachusetts. We'll tell you when there's a hearing that we might be able to push the needle on. We'll tell you when something terrible is happening. We'll tell you about good things happening in the country too, because we're seeing huge, awesome changes, and we can make these changes partly because the waste companies screwed everybody over and overcharged them during COVID and other times. So now we have a chance to make some change. So especially in Massachusetts, this is the time to get involved. We can get more done probably over the next year or two than we ever have in Massachusetts. So please, please, please get involved. And thank you so much for having me.
Kirstie, thank you so much. You were just as inspirational as I expected to hear. You've given us a roadmap and an indication of where the issues are in our communities. And we've had a few questions coming in. I'm going to take the prerogative here, since I have the mic, to ask my own question. As Joel mentioned early on, I've been involved with the transfer station here in Weston. And we did go to pay as you throw a year ago, I'm proud to say. But my question is, what do we do with the plastic? It's coming in, and it's fairly clean in Weston because people drop it off and people are pretty responsible, but it's coming in, and it's not going to stop coming in. So what should we do? Well,
one thing I will say is, again, we know that, for instance, the bags aren't coming in New Jersey anymore, right? So bag bans work. I believe Weston's a town, right?
Yep.
So you can't put a fee on paper bag bans. I would ban both of them in Weston if you haven't already.
Well, we have.
Good. And did you do it so that there was? That's just one example. We can get into it offline because I'd love to chat about that. We need to do this the state level because, again, a town like Weston or Sturbridge can't put a fee on things, which is problematic. And then you need to literally, what I would do is look at your transfer station, what's coming in, what are the problems, and then evaluate how, can it be banned, can it be replaced? Some of it can be done at the town level, like the bags, like the polystyrene, some of the foodware, skip the stuff, there are things that can be done, but a lot of it does have to be done, I think, at the state level to be effective. And then we have to actually create pilots everywhere to show folks that this stuff is happening and can happen. An example of that, for instance, is in Durham, North Carolina, they're talking about doing a pizza box pilot, right? A reusable pizza box. If everybody who sells pizza in town signs up, can we make this happen? That's the kind of stuff that we're going to need some creativity locally for, because then those solutions get enacted at the state and federal level. You know, when we talk about this country as each state being a laboratory politically, the cities and towns are where it really starts and where a lot of the creative ideas are. So I would say, look at what the plastic you have. I would also say, get real about it. Tell people, number one and number two. What they're doing with the 5, as far as I can tell from talking to experts, is 3 through 7 are being bundled together. Sometimes they're being sent to a plant in Ontario where they're chopped up, they float off the 5 and recycle some of that, and then they trash the rest of it. It's not worth getting all those bales all the way up there. You're not sending, I bet, your plastic, your number 5 to Alabama. So if that's the case, just 1 and 2, you know, stop even pretending with the rest of it. And honestly, you know, we should be calling out the number 1 and number 2 too, because it's so toxic. It's going to get downcycled. All the things I said. It's a fail. Even when it works, it's a fail, Lori.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. I was at a transfer station a couple of weeks ago in Maine, and you know, we came in with our bag of plastic stuff, and the guy at the transfer station said, "Well, we only take number 2." And I was like, you know, it was a revelation.
That's what you should be doing. And honestly,
Yeah.
I think I think that not only will that save cities and towns money, but I also think that that will allow the public to understand what baloney all this is. You know,
Yeah.
it really is baloney. And
Yeah.
also, you know, we have to start changing our habits ourselves. Sure, we all do the best we can, but anything that you can do that's systemic, you know, if it means, if you tell me you're going to you know, spend a certain amount of time making yourself, you know, something that's going to allow you to avoid a small amount of plastic versus calling your legislator, please call your legislator. Like if you're gonna drive extra to refill something or call your legislator, please call your legislator. I mean, I hope you can do both, but you know, understand that the political action, sending an email, legislators, if they get, I've heard 6 to 10 emails or phone calls on an issue, they think it's a priority for their constituents. So your action is the most powerful thing you can do.
Great. Thank you for that reminder. We have a question from Brian, who asked about the carbon footprint of plastic shopping bag versus paper bags. He's read statistics that indicate that plastic bags generate 39% less GHG than uncomposted paper bags and 68% less GHG than composted paper bags.
Well, first off, why do I care? I'm not using a paper bag. Like I'm using a reusable bag, and the whole system should be geared to getting you use a reusable bag. That's first off. So that comparison doesn't have much value to me. Second off, I care about the paper part. I want us to reduce our paper use, very much so. I'm especially concerned with cardboard recycling, which is pitiful, and a lot of the secondary packaging. 60% of packaging is secondary packaging going to grocery stores. So when I'm at my grocery store, they come out with a big box of bananas and then they're throwing that away. It's probably not getting recycled. I want Stop and Shop, Whole Foods, you know, any of them, Shaw's, to use a reusable box. They're getting the same damn bananas every week. That's what I want to see, is a reusable box. So when we talk about paper and cardboard, we need to go after the big fish, and we need to also care about the pieces where we can reduce. Absolutely. So I would say for bags, do what you did in New Jersey, ban both of them. It worked really, really well. Also for bags, even if, so that's the climate impact piece of it, right? But if you put the climate impact piece away, that plastic bag is never going away, never. The paper bag will break down in some way, shape, or form. It's not going to rot or compost in a landfill. That's true. But at least the paper bag will not break down into pieces that will poison me through the leachate escaping into my groundwater. And as of somebody who has a landfill, a closed landfill a mile away, I worry about that all the time. So that microplastic piece, and remember too, that the pollution from plastic, and I didn't go into this today, another whole presentation, you're talking about the fracking emissions, which are never included in those life cycle analyses. Fracking emissions, the plastic, you know, the ethylene cracking, the plastic production from the ethylene and then making a plastic bag. I bet you dollars to donuts that the actual comparisons don't include any of that, never mind the downstream toxicity. So I'm very suspect of anything that says that plastic's a good idea, because it almost always excludes all of the negative upstream pieces of that. Another thing I would say is take a good look. John Haidt at CLF wrote a really good analysis of some of the bag work that was done comparing GHG. And also one of the things that is perhaps to me a more valuable comparison, if I ban these bags, will people buy other plastic bags, right? That there was a lot of work done on that. And some folks said, well, you're not going to get as much bang for your buck of banning your plastic groceries bags as you think you are, because people are going to buy them. It actually turns out that's not true. So John Haidt wrote a really good piece that's gotten a lot of traction at CLF that kind of digs into that piece too.
Great, thank you. Joel asked, it seems so hard to live plastic free. What are your top recommendations for reducing plastic use in our daily lives?
It's impossible to live plastic free unless you're going to spend a lot of time living plastic free. I think that you should, similar to what we're talking about with the Weston transfer station, take a look at what you use. Go after the whales, right? Don't worry about the sunfish. Like, I'm not worried about my contacts. I'm not going to stop wearing contacts. I can't wear glasses. I'm going to wear contacts for the rest of my life. They're made of plastic. I'm over it. What I'm worried about in my household are my big laundry jugs. I'm worried about the filmy plastic. I'm worried about milk jugs. And then remember the sneaky sources of plastic, right? I'm worried about the fact that if I buy milk that's in a carton or juice that's in a carton, it's covered in plastic inside and out. And I'm mostly worried about plastic in my household use for how it's impacting my and my family's health. So I got rid of my plastic toothbrush and got rid of the kids' plastic toothbrushes because I don't want to be chewing on plastic. That seems stupid, right? Anything that we're, if we're drinking tea, we're not using a plastic tea bag. Most of the tea bags are plastic. We're not chewing gum, which is made of plastic most of the time. We're trying to avoid the places where I know plastic's going to be getting into my body. I'm avoiding plastic rugs for that reason. There's a lot of shedding from that. I'm trying to avoid plastic clothing that's going to go into my wash, put plastic into my water, and get plastic out of my dryer. So those are the places. I don't want the air around me to be filled with microplastics because of all of our workout clothes are plastic. Now, I'm not saying I'm doing a great job, so never hold me up as the example, because I always think it's better for me to do something like this than it is to be better about shopping or sorting through our things and being particular about it. So you have to find your own balance for that, and don't drive yourself crazy. But the first thing I would do, if you have nylon rugs and other plastic rugs in your house, that's not good. If you've got a nonstick pan and you're using plastic containers for your food, or plastic wrap or plastic, baggies, that's not good. That's really bad for your health. Get rid of all of that. And so that's the stuff I would hit first. Don't ever drink a cup of hot coffee out of a styrofoam cup. Okay, that's what I'm most worried about. So if you're, and remember the paper cups are lined with plastic too. The Solo cups are made of the same stuff as the styrofoam cups. So that's the stuff you should try and do the best you can on. Don't drive yourself too crazy about whether your frozen fruit is in a plastic bag, because I don't think you can buy it any other way.
It's interesting that you're, this is really not just in the global self-interest, but it's in our individual self-interest. And I think that's a really important angle for people to say, okay, I want to do the right thing by the planet, but I also really want to do the right thing for my body and for my families,
right?
And avoid plastics for that reason.
And also don't drive yourself crazy, because that's the worst. That's how you're going to really take your immune system and kill it, is if you're worrying all the time. So find what makes you able to deal with the fact we're all going to die. We're all going to die, probably horribly. Just accept that and do the best you can so that people can be as helpful as they can be. Like, we really, healthy as they can be. We want to do that. And one of those things is being happy and having a good time and, enjoying life. So don't drive yourself too crazy. Look at the big stuff and go for that.
I didn't know there were toothbrushes that didn't have plastic bristles. They
Yeah,
exist.
those bamboo ones. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. And my hygienist said that my teeth were exemplary the last time I was in. So don't worry, you can make that work.
We got a question about separating food scraps and yard waste, and why would that be?
So if your food, and this is why we need the agencies to do a good job with where the end game for these things, right? So if your food is being composted in windrow composting, that means it's being it's the think of it as the brown and green being mixed, and water, the misting of it, and the rolling it around so the air gets into it. It can be a huge facility with dump trucks doing all this, and and big machines. It can be your backyard with a rolling composter. It can be any different degree of that. But if you have yard waste and compostable foodware, it needs to get to 120 degrees. If it gets to 120 degrees, you probably can't do that unless you're a real artist, and certainly much more of an artist than I am, in your backyard. You might be able to do it, but you have to be an artist. You need a big facility to get to 120 degrees. That's the only time that compostable foodware and yard waste is going to break down well or efficiently. I talked to a guy once who broke down an entire whale that way in windrow composting. Whale had died, they brought it to his composting facility, and he got the whole thing to break down, he said, in a few months. Amazing. That's what that does. If you have your waste, your food scraps going to your backyard, and we're talking about big branches and things like that, yard waste is going to be problematic if it's big branches. If it's leaves, it'll probably be fine. But again, it depends on what you're trying to break down. If you're trying to break down bones and big branches and things like that, not going to necessarily work in your backyard. The other place that foodware, compostable foodware, and yard waste does not break down is an anaerobic digester. Anaerobic digesters, unlike an aerated system where you're turning it and adding different components, and like the water and as I said, the green, the brown, all that, anaerobic digesters, they can do a dry or wet system, but it's like a stomach. So a lot of times it's a wet system. They slurry the scraps. That's what the core facility in Charlestown does, that Waste Management owns. And Waste Management works with them, gets them to slurry it, and it goes to an anaerobic digester. It's not a problem that it goes to an anaerobic digester. That anaerobic digester can break down food scraps, but it can't break down yard waste. And it can't break down compostable foodware. So plates or cups or forks and knives. That stuff needs to get to 120 degrees. After something leaves an anaerobic digester, it can then be finished composted, and that's a good thing. The problem is that Waste Management through the core facility is sending everything to a wastewater treatment plant to be mixed with sewage sludge. That's bad. The anaerobic digesters at farms in Massachusetts run, I think Vanguard Renewables is the company. They have one in Jordan, at Jordan Farm, for instance, and they put food scraps and manure, and it goes in the anaerobic digester. Nice clean product afterwards that's made into bedding for the animals. That's all good. That's fine. So how you process it, Lori, determines what can go into it. And this is one of the reasons I'm not a fan of compostable foodware. We should be using reusables, but also compostable foodware, many times there's no place to send it, even if you have a composting program.
Yeah, so I guess the answer is, bottom line is, it's a little complicated, and it depends on both the process and what you're putting into it.
That's exactly right. Like, what's your process and what you're putting it in, and making sure that it has a use at the end, because we're running out of clean soil. We need to be renewing our soil and also sequestering carbon in our soil and compost. And that's the best way to do it, is to keep those nice clean food scraps and yard waste clean and compost them. And to make sure, to be honest, to make sure the products that we do have, like paper and cardboard, that are going to have an end life of composting, that they're clean too. There's a huge problem of putting different chemicals in them too. They're not going to necessarily poison a whole region the way that sewage sludge would, but they're not, we shouldn't be eating out of something that has PFAS in it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, switching gears a little bit, We understand that Maine has passed a law to make producers responsible for their trash. Can you talk a little bit more about that and maybe get into a little bit the question of, the fact that we do subsidize gas and we do subsidize these producers, and how do we change the incentive system?
I mean, if I could do one thing, just one, if I were queen of the world and I was only, or genie and only able to act once, it would be to take all the subsidies, like the $1 a year rent and all the different straight monies and, preferential treatment from the oil and gas companies. Like that would be, doing that would be transformational and change how all of this operates. But that being said, and that not happening right up front, we should go at this in other ways. You're right. So as I said before, a bottle bill is an extended producer responsibility like that. We pay the 10 cents that we get back. And then there's what's called that's the deposit. So that encourages you to bring it back. And then there's a handling fee where the producer, the beverage company, pays for the material to be collected and brought to a recycling facility where it's actually recycled. Producer responsibility for packaging is much more complicated than just doing a bottle bill. So we recommend, first step, get a good bottle bill in place, which Maine has. They have an excellent bottle bill. It's a little old fashioned in some ways, but it really works. And it includes all the liquor bottles, all the wine bottles, all the water. It's fantastic. It includes nips, everything. We need to make sure first that we get our bottle bill up to that level. And then meanwhile, we should be passing an extended producer responsibility for packaging law like Maine has done. Now, Maine's is really a data law and a reimbursement law, meaning that it will force Maine, the agency, to write regulations to actually evaluate what there is for packaging in the state of Maine, what's happening to it, where it's going, what's recyclable, what's not. Then it's going to set fees and the producers will be forced to pay for those fees, and it will go back to the municipalities, townships, and counties that are paying for recycling and help pay for packaging, recycling, and disposal. The problem with traditional extended producer responsibility bills and laws is some of them are like Maine, but most of them actually hand the whole system in some countries over to the corporations. The concern with that is the corporations are terrible at this and don't want to do it, and they just try and avoid everything. So they want to burn everything. So that's why we see a potential loophole in California for burning, why we see a huge loophole in Colorado for burning. That makes me really concerned about those extended producer responsibility for packaging laws. Because if this stuff just gets burned, if the difficult materials just get burned, what have we actually accomplished? Nothing. We're just burning these materials, the plastics predominantly, in low-income communities, environmental justice communities is what's going to happen. So we need to make sure if we do anything like that in Massachusetts or any state, that we are reducing the packaging, really giving them eco-modulated fees that incentivize them to use less packaging, reward them if the packaging is reusable, set targets for reuse and reduction in the law. Also toxicity. There are a lot of materials that should be banned from use, and we need to start doing that. And that's why our extended producer responsibility bill, which I hope to see sponsored in Massachusetts, we're early days still for the next session, that is going to do all these things and be a little bit more aggressive. I don't know if it'll actually pass, but if we're going to go for it, we don't want to set up a crappy system that we're stuck with for another 10 and 20 years until we fix it again.
Thank you. And Suzanne has asked, well and good to talk about producer responsibility, but meanwhile, is there anything we can do as consumers in the grocery store?
I mean, yeah, the reusable vegetable bags is one example. The going to refill stores, there's one locally here in Brookfield, pushing all that. I mean, it's not that there's people want to be able to solve the problem themselves by their own choices, and I think that's a very difficult thing to do. And honestly, those choices only mean so much. Oh, that's my son. Go away. I'm doing a presentation.
Life on
So I mean,
Zoom,
there's
right?
things. So when you come to the grocery store, you just do the best you can. Again, like we said earlier, I listen. I have had the same tube of Saran wrap, I think, for the last 25 years, and I haven't used it. I haven't thrown it away because I haven't used it, but I don't use it anymore. So there's a good place to start. If you've got a bunch of bags of plastic bags that you're using, and for sandwiches and stuff, just stop. Buy some reusable containers. So invest in ways to avoid the bad choices. Do the best you can. And also, we do find, and this again is based on, a lot of these choices are a lot easier when you have money and time. So we want to make sure that we're not creating a world where, like we have with organic food, where only rich people can be safe. That's not cool. Like, that's not what I want to see. We need to do better. So when it comes to zero waste, we want to make sure that we're making these opportunities cost effective and available to everybody, not just to people who have time. One thing that does help, though, that does make a difference, if you cook from scratch, you have less packaging waste, not even close. If you buy a pizza versus making a pizza, it's not even comparable. So that's the kind of thing that you should do the best you can to try and make food from scratch, buy in bulk. That's another big thing, buy in bulk, avoid plastic anytime you can. But there's a lot of difficult choices, and it takes a lot of time and energy to figure out the best path. And then there's some choices that I'm just always unhappy with. So
people on the questions are curious about some home products and their safety. What about silicone storage containers? Do you think those are problematic?
So, it's interesting. I had an intern look into that for me because I was concerned about them too. And I think, again, it's one of those things, like, it depends, probably. I think silicone can be clean, but I would be very careful about it. I defer to glass. I defer to glass whenever I defer to cast iron. I defer to stainless steel, and I defer to glass. So that I'm not saying that there are no other products or things that work. There's definitely, and again, you do want to try for reusable first whenever you can. So that depends too. But I would always just defer to those things when in doubt. And then if folks have good information about products that they've dug into and found to be clean from what they can tell, I would love to hear about them, because I like to share them with folks and, and be as careful as we can be. It is very difficult in a world where paper and cardboard, for instance, sometimes has PFAS in it. It's very difficult. Things that you think should be relatively clean, when you're forced to use a single-use product, may not be. So I think no matter what it is, you just do the best job you can double checking.
Thanks. So we're running out of time. So just one more question. A couple people have asked about medical waste and what should be done about that in terms of separating.
So medical waste is definitely a difficult one. When you're looking at the waste stream, we try and go after, again, as I said, the whales, right? We try and go after 25% food, 25% to a third food and yard waste, 25% cardboard and paper, metal, glass, and plastic, which is another 20% or so. And then you start getting into electronic waste, and you start getting into medical waste, and you start getting into others. Textiles are part of that, but then some other weird stuff, many times, which is toxic. Let's put it this way: if we solved everything but our medical waste problem, we wouldn't consider ourselves having a waste problem anymore. I mean, it's a very small percentage. That being said, I've talked to, I would say most of the time we have the answers we need to compost well, to recycle our metal, glass, and paper and cardboard really well. If we kept it all separate, you can't have glass in with your curbside. That just ruins everything. Stop using plastic, deconstruct homes. We know how to solve most of our problems. We need to put systems in place to do it. Medical waste is one of those areas where we need to go back to reusables in some ways. Like when I go to a dentist and I have to throw the cup away. When I was a kid, you didn't throw the cup away, right? It was just cleaned. The tools were just cleaned, same thing. So sometimes there are things that could be done old school if we have sterilization, but there are many things that understandably, given how important what a doctor or a nurse or other technician is doing for you, we're not going to worry too much about. So, that's a place where maybe some innovation could make a difference. But honestly, I'm not spending a ton of time on it because I just want to make sure that we take care of the bigger part of the problem. The other thing I will say is, though, that we should not build incinerators, which is always the worst choice because then you have a landfill as well. We should not build incinerators to deal with our medical waste. Number one, because it's so polluting. But number two, because we find that once you build it, you have to feed the beast. And that means that you end up with your plastic and other difficult wastes like electronics and other things in that facility. And we can definitely find better solutions for those things.
It gets back to that whole incentive problem that you have been
that's
underneath
exactly
everything.
Right, that's exactly right, Lori. We want to make it as easy to find good solutions for our materials as it is to just throw them away. And so what that means is we can't turn to burning. Even if it were safe, it would be a bad idea because of how wasteful it is, and expensive. But because we know it always ends up in low-income environmental justice communities, we really want to make sure that we don't ever build any high heat facilities.
Thank you so much. I'm turning it back to Joel.
Yes, thank you, Kirstie. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your vision for a reduced waste world. As you said, good things can happen if we all get involved. We didn't get to absolutely everybody's question. I would recommend to anybody to send, Kirstie, you said you were open to getting questions. Go to just-zero, just-0.org.
Mm-hmm.
And send your question in. Be interested, I'm sure, to know what, for example, about artificial turf fields, about recycling nylon, and some other questions.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And please sign up to be a member while you're there. And my email is kpecci@just-zero.org. So feel free to email me too.
Okay. Well, Metro West Climate Solutions is taking the month of December off. Our next session will be on January 17th, 2023. It'll be on heat pumps, the whys and wherefores. So go to metrowestclimatesolutions.org to sign up for the newsletter to receive more information about this upcoming session. So thank you all for attending tonight. We'll close this down, and remember, reduce, reuse, and recycle. Good night.
Thanks for having me, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kirstie.